In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a Model Magic Yayoi Kusama inspired mushroom. So you'll need a pack of Model Magic. I have white here. It also comes in different colors, so if you already have one that's colored, then you don't have to worry about the adding color part, but I'll show you how to add color to white. So I have the white Model Magic, I have a Sharpie, I have a pencil, and I have a marker. You can use any color you want to make your mushroom. I've chosen raspberry. So I will first open the Model Magic. So I'm gonna move my other stuff out of the way. To open the Model Magic, you're gonna flip it over. There is a flap here. And so you're gonna pinch with these fingers and hold on to the flap, and you're gonna pinch with these fingers on this flap, and you're gonna go like that. And it looks easy, but it's actually pretty hard to open these packages for some reason. So I wanna make sure I get all my Model Magic out of here. And then I'm gonna put my trash in the trash can. And my marker's rolling away. So I have this little brick of Model Magic, and the first step when you get Model Magic is to take it out and play with it. So I am going to squish it and stretch it and rip it and stick it back together and warm it up with my hands so that I can get it to be nice and pliable. Pliable means it's easy to make into a shape. And when you make it warmer with your hands, it makes it easier to make the shape that you want. So I'm going to squish it until the heat from my hands warms up the clay a little bit. So then it's gonna start to be a little bit more stretchy, like slime, but not sticky. So now that I have it how I want it, I am going to make a meatball. And it doesn't have to be a perfect meatball, because I'm gonna just take my meatball and I'm gonna smash it onto the table. I'm gonna push it down and make a pancake. And I'm gonna use my fingers and I'm gonna push away from the middle of it and spread my pancake so that I can make it thinner and wider. And you may be thinking, why are you making a pancake? I thought you said we were making a mushroom. Because I first need to add the color to my clay. And my whole mushroom is going to be the color that I've chosen, which is raspberry. I know that these just regular old Crayola markers work great for adding color to Model Magic. I don't know about other brands of markers, but you could try. I just know this kind works, so that's why I'm using this kind. If I add color to this clay, which is white, it's going to be like mixing white paint with this color. And when you mix white paint with a color, you get a lighter version of that color. So my Model Magic, since it's white, is not going to be the same exact color as this marker because it is white and it's mixing with the color. So it'll be a lighter version of raspberry, also known as pink. So I am going to take the cap off, stick it on the back so I don't lose it, and I'm going to take my marker and I am going to make all these little dots which look like chocolate chips. I'm not gonna just scribble color over it because that dries the marker out. I'm just gonna lightly press these little chocolate chips all over my pancake. So I'm pretending that I am adding 1,000,000 chocolate chips to my pancake. And I want to cover up as much of the pancake as I can with these chocolate chips because I love chocolate chips and I want all the chocolate chips in my pancake here. So maybe it might be easier to go around the outside and then fill in the inside, however you want to do it. As long as you're adding as much color as you can by making these little chocolate chips, then it'll work just fine. All right, almost done. That looks pretty good. So I didn't cover all the white, but it's enough to add color to my clay, which is what I want. So that looks good. So now I'm gonna cap my marker till it snaps. There's that satisfying snap to make sure the lid's on, and I'm gonna put it aside. Now I have to mix this all together, and I don't want to, this is all wet marker, so I don't want to just take my hand and touch this, because then my whole hand is going to turn raspberry, and I don't want that. So the easiest way to mix this in without touching the marker itself directly is you can either fold this so that the marker goes inside the white, or you could roll it up. So either way, you want to just make it so that all of the marker is on the inside. I still see some here, so I could just even roll these in too, because I don't want to touch that marker directly, or it's going to turn my hands raspberry, which is not the end of the world, but I'd rather not. So all of the color is inside this blob now. So to mix it, I am going to start to stretch it, and you'll see the color is inside, and I'm going to stretch it and then stick it back together. And so just a series of ripping it in half, sticking it back together is mixing in all that pink. And now I am touching the wet pink marker because it's in the clay, but I'm not touching it directly when I first made all those dots. So it's not going to get on my hands as badly as it would if I just touched that wet marker part. So I am just going to keep folding, ripping, sticking back together until all the colors mixed in. So my whole blob of Model Magic is now pink. Raspberry mixed with the white clay, it made pink. So my mushroom is going to be pink. So the way that I make my mushroom now that I have the color I want, is I have one blob here. And so I'm gonna just make it into a meatball. So here's my meatball, and I'm gonna break my meatball in half, which means I'm gonna break it into 2 equal parts. So now I have 2 blobs. I have one that can be the stem, and I have one that can be the top of the marshmallow. I mean, not marshmallow. One that can be the top of the mushroom. The stem, I'm going to try to make into the shape of a marshmallow. It's kind of what it's gonna look like, because if I make my stem too tall and thin, my mushroom's not going to stand up. I need to make the stem be shorter and thicker so that it can hold up the top. So for now, I'm just gonna put the top aside because I don't need that yet. And I'm gonna do the stem. So first I'm gonna make the stem into a meatball, like this. And then I'm gonna roll it into a little pickle. And then with my fingers, I'm gonna squish it down a little shorter than that with a flat top and bottom to make it into what kind of looks like a marshmallow. I could make it a little taller and thinner, but mostly I wanna keep it like short and wide so that it can hold up the top. So here's my stem part. So I can stick that down. It's got a flat bottom and a flat top, like a tall marshmallow. So the next step is I'm gonna take my blob for my top, and I'm going to make another meatball with that. And it doesn't have to be a perfect meatball, because if you've ever seen I keep calling it marshmallows. This looks like a marshmallow, but if you've ever seen a mushroom, there are lots of different kinds, and a lot of times they are like wavy on the top, or they're not symmetrical, they're kind of funky looking. So that's okay. So I have my meatball here, and then I'm gonna squish it. So now I have a nice top for my mushroom. And if I wanted to, I could get detailed by making imprints into the top of my mushroom. So on the top of a mushroom, a lot of times, well, sometimes if it's like a cartoon mushroom, a lot of times we see like circles on it. So if you want, you could put this down flat and take your marker again, and there is a circle conveniently on the cap of your marker. You could just press that in to make circles on top of your mushroom if you want. And then if you want to flip it over on the bottom underside of a mushroom, there are lines. You could use a pencil, and you could just use the tip of the pencil to make a texture in your mushroom of lines coming out from the center, kind of like if you were drawing the sun. And these are the rays of the sun. So that's called radial symmetry, when these are the same all the way around. So mine are not exactly the same. They're not the same width apart or anything, but I'm making just rays coming out of the middle, kind of like the sun, just to give it a texture underneath, like an actual mushroom has. So I'm not using the pencil to draw with, I'm using the tip of it to indent into, emboss into, or to make a texture. So then if I want, I could flatten these little pieces that popped up. And now I can peel it up. So I have the bottom texture, and then I have the top texture. And this is no longer perfect. That's okay. I could try to squish it back together, or I could just be okay with the fact that it's not a perfectly shaped mushroom, which a lot of mushrooms are not. So I am now going to take it and my stem, and I can just put the stem on the underneath of the mushroom and stick that top on. I could leave that top flat, or I could squish it down a little bit. I could even squish it so that it's like wavy on the edges. Kind of gives it like a little cute look, kind of like the mushrooms in Fantasia, that Disney movie where they dance around and stuff. That's what it reminds me of. So there we go. It has like a little wave to it. And now I have my mushroom. So I have the bottom, the top is stuck on well. There's some circle texture on top. There's line texture underneath, and it can stand up by itself. So I've made a structurally sound mushroom. Now to make it a Yayoi Kusama mushroom, I have to add black dots. So I'm gonna use my Sharpie to add those black dots. You also could use paint and a Q-tip to make the dots, or you might want to wait until this dries and gets hard before you make the dots, but just so I can show you in the video, I'm gonna make the dots on here right away. So I'm gonna do the top first so I don't get Sharpie all over my fingers. And I'm gonna start in the middle here, and I'm just gonna make dots. And I'm only gonna make the dots like where I don't have those circle textures. But if I wanted to, I could put the dots in the circle. I just think it might look cool if I just do the dots around those circle textures. We'll see how it looks. I can always change my mind. So I don't have to push hard with the Sharpie, it just kind of spreads into the clay. And I could leave the top like that. I kind of like how that looks. If you want, you can put dots inside your circles if you want, but I'm gonna leave mine plain, and I'm just gonna do the dots around it. And then it's kind of drooping a little. And then the stem part, I am going to do my dots in lines, because that's usually how she makes the pattern on her mushrooms or pumpkins or flowers. She usually does them in lines. So we're learning about line, we're learning about shape and pattern, because when you repeat a shape or a line, it becomes a pattern. Also learned about form, because we formed some different shapes to make this mushroom. We formed some meatballs, we formed a marshmallow, and we used texture too by making these lines in the bottom and by making these circles on the top with the marker cap. So that is good. That's all I'm gonna add. I'm gonna put my Sharpie aside, and now I'm just gonna let this dry, and then it'll be nice and strong once it dries. So there is my Yayoi Kusama inspired model magic mushroom.